also want to welcome, of course, our students, the Greenport High School, and of course, the principal, Gary Kalish, and also the teacher that actually went with the student on the two buses that came out from Greenport. And maybe it's Brian Toussaint. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, Toussaint.
Toussaint, okay. And I had the pleasure of meeting them this week on Monday to kind of try to coordinate this. And so we welcome you. Of course, you're here because of the Yellow Candle Project that initiated by the Men's Club in our synagogue a couple years ago. This is the second year that we do this, and this year the proceeds and through also generous donors, we sponsored two buses to go to the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York City. There were 80 students. That's pretty impressive. Wow. And the Holocaust is part of their curriculum this year, so that really complemented what they were doing. So I want to thank everybody that was involved in this, and of course starting with Tom Byrne, who headed the men's club that really was involved in packaging the candles and sending them out. There was a lot of legwork here. So, but at the end of the day, of course, we all benefit. Chuck Simon that kind of brought the idea to us, and of course the high school administration. Before we hear from the students, and I know that Brian is going to MC this, right? I want to say in 1 minute, basically, what the Germans were trying to do, what the Nazis, actually I shouldn't use the word necessarily German, what the Nazis were trying to do is to create a perfect human being. And you know, a lot of people bought into that idea that you can actually achieve this high super human that will be beautiful, smart, healthy, always you know, ready to serve. It doesn't really hold in our world. And actually this Shabbat exactly, we read about the requirements of the Kohanim, the priests, the high priests, and the priests that work with them to be without blemish, But at the end we see that this is not possible. It's just about the image that we project. But if we can accept each other with their imperfections, because we all have imperfections, that's not even a question. The question in life is, do we embrace the differences and then the strength in the other people, or we will try to always create our surrounding in our image. If we try to do it in our image, you get into Egypt, slavery, that direction. And if you go the other way of participating and learning from each other, you get to democracy, you get to equality and freedom.
Rabbi, thank you very much. My name is Gary Kalish. I'm the principal at Greenport High School. And on behalf of a few of my amazing students that are here, and amazing teacher, Mr. Toussaint, I want to extend a deep, deep sense of gratitude to your community. Excuse me. We were just so honored. One moment, I have my little ones are here. Just excuse me. That's guys, great. Just give me 1 minute.
We encourage that.
Yeah, well, you know, I love kids. It's okay. That's what it is, guys. Just have a seat, honey. But you know what your community afforded our community here at school was an opportunity to visit a museum and really punctuate the kind of learning we're trying to do, and on top of that, really get a deep understanding. And I wasn't expecting the way that I felt just joining in part of your service, and I'm sure my students kind of felt that too, to really highlight overall, this learning piece of what we're really trying to instill in our students. And I think I'll pass it over to my colleague, Mr. Toussaint. He has some students, and I'll stop talking now. But once again, from all of us, thank you so much for all of your support. What a wonderful treat and a very important learning experience for all. Mr. Toussaint.
Yes, just to echo what Gary said, I'm just so grateful to provide the students with this opportunity. I've been teaching for 10 years, and the Holocaust is part of our curriculum. So I've taught the Holocaust for many years, but I've never had the opportunity to then, after teaching it, to bring the students to an experience like this. So I'm just so grateful and for all of your support for making this possible, because I think what the students were able to get out of this is something you can't just get within a classroom. As much as you read and you view images and you watch video and you discuss, to actually go to a space like they were able to in the museum, and then even hear testimony from a survivor, it was truly special, and it had a major impact, I know, on all of our students for sure. So we have 4 of our students with us this evening: Daniel, Sam, Allie, and Bray. So they're just going to share a little bit about their experiences. So why don't we start with, I believe Bray is going to start us off.
Hi, my name's Bray, as you all know. Nice to meet you. The museum was incredible, and it just showed just on the whole scale of the Holocaust and how impactful it was on a lot of people. And I felt that the museum provided a sense of personality behind the victims of the Holocaust. And with the artifacts and uniforms that the prisoners were forced to wear, that was really powerful, and it carried a lot of weight. And there are many individual stories throughout the museum that were discussed that don't often get shared. And I feel like the museum did a wonderful job at sharing these. And the overall was incredible to just see how crazy the Holocaust and the Nazi regime was.
Thank you, Bray.
Thank you.
Daniel?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm Daniel, and I'd just like to say again, thank you for providing us with this opportunity to go to the Holocaust Museum. It was a great learning experience, and I don't think I could feel the amount of weight and just the sheer force of what it was like during the Holocaust, but I understood that what took place during the 1940s and 1930s was devastating, as well as looking at the gun casings that they used during the Holocaust. It was just so powerful, and the message that it gave me was just, it can't be explained with words. But it also provided me with how they cling to hope, in a sense. For example, one of the Jewish prisoners were on a death march, and they had this trumpet, and during the death march they played the trumpet. It provided them with hope to continue moving forward and to get to the next concentration camp. Sadly, they passed away, but I just like to show you that even during those grave times, there was still hope in the end. That's all.
Nice.
Thank you.
Good point, thank you.
Wow. The human spirit didn't give up all the way.
Thank you, Bray. That was Daniel, actually. Thank you, Daniel. Who's not? Allie, would you like to speak?
First off, I would just like to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and that I'm honestly beyond grateful to travel to this museum and hear the testimony from a survivor. And reflecting on my own life, it made me more aware of how just how lucky I am to have the life that I have. And it also made me more aware of how important it is to show tolerance in order to repeat history and make sure hate isn't able to take a hold of society today. And overall, the museum was just such a learning experience that you wouldn't be able to grasp in a classroom And it was just such a heavy, deep feeling that I feel that like we all needed to feel in order to just honestly know how like devastating the Holocaust was. And I just want to thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Now we have Sam.
Thank you so much for letting us come to your wonderful service and for providing us with the trip to the Holocaust Museum. I think for me, it gives me a better understanding of what truly happened during the 1940s. It gives a more visual picture of it. And I learned on that trip that the Dominican Republic, the country that I come from, played a part in helping some Jews come to have a better life, away from Germany. I think it's really impactful for me as it gives hope that the world is going to become a much better place than it was in the 1940s, and hopefully it'll stay that way in the future.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question before you may ask us something? Do you think humanity can sink this low again? Or do you think that this is something that can only happen once?
I guess I'll answer first. Well, I think this provided us with the absolute lowest to the absolute lowest point it could get. I think there will be attempts by maybe some nations to try to revitalize what occurred in the past, but I don't think it'll ever reach that point again. I think the world knows better than to have a second. Yeah.
I have to say that this was my experience when I first learned about the Holocaust in second grade, that I thought already at that age, I thought, okay, humanity has sunk the lowest it possibly can, and now it's only going up. So, Judy? Judy Weiner is our president.
And she's
I
muted.
sorry, I unmuted myself. I would like to say how grateful I am that you students were able to be there and to hear from you, because you're the future. And all of you will become the policymakers and the educators and the parents in the future. You will determine who we are as a country and who we are as a world. And so that's why I think it's so important that you learn about the past and the horrific evils of the past. It's not that far away, and there are things just like that percolating right now, right in this country. And as you know, in other parts of the world as well. So that's why I think it's so important that you folks, you guys are aware of what happened, because you can change the future.
Amen.
Amen.
Is there
Amen is right.
you want to ask us, Einstein's mother, when he came back from school every day, she didn't ask him what he learned. She asked him, what good question did you ask today? Is there any question you want to ask us as a...
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How did you guys feel about the propaganda that you guys faced? Did you ignore it, or did you guys use it as motivation to get better than what the Germans were doing?
Can you repeat that? You were a little bit going
Sorry.
in.
How did you guys feel about the propaganda that was targeted to you? Did you ignore, or did you guys use it as motivation?
Oh, you mean how do you deal with anti-Semitism?
Yeah.
You ignore it, or do you act, or you need to be proactive about it? That's a big question.
Ooh, big question.
That's a huge question, and I can tell you that the Jewish people were always divided on this line, at this line. So, and probably still, those who think that we should tolerate all the way, and we preach toleration. but there are limits in everything. So I think if it crosses a limit, we do need to say something. I think the ADL and organizations like that, the Anti-Defamation League, they, at the end of the day, they do a good job. Not perfect, and you can disagree with them, but the fact that they are raising awareness when things like this happen, I think that's important. These are the alarm bell. Yeah, Chuck.
Well, I'm just thinking about Hanukkah. And Hanukkah is a festival where you light lights. It's in the wintertime around Christmas. But the real message is that you have to fight for freedom all the time. You have to stand up and express yourself, and you can't be passive about it. And that's always meant a lot to me personally.
Yeah. So it is the whole teaching is when to do things. You know, that's why it's an ever learning process. You know, so but it says justice should you pursue, is because justice is always changing and slippery, and you have to keep pursuing it. But ultimately, that's why we are here as human beings, because otherwise we're just another animal roaming Earth. But if we try to sanctify our lives and infuse it with the meaning of elevating ourselves, that's really what we're here for. So that is the job. Justice shall you pursue. Great question.
Thank you for your perspective.
What is it?
Well, I thought Sam was saying something else.
Oh, all I said was thank you for your perspective on it.
I think also, just as Judy said, you are the future. And when I watch TV and I see all of these neo-Nazi, these new Nazi rallies going on all over, and it's not only in the United States, it's in so many countries. Anti-Semitism is on the rise considerably, which I find very frightening. And you know, we, all of us in here in Zoom and in the synagogue, we understand what the Holocaust was about, and how could we not? How could we accept something like this, and how could we not do something about it? And so anyhow, I'm hoping that many of you will be in a position of power, of learning, of teaching, and influence, a position of influence. And first of all, to be able to, there are Holocaust deniers. They deny that it ever happened. They say that this is the biggest fake news in the world, but we know it's not true. So if you folks are the seeds, and just the minute you hear something that's really crazy, like those Blacks, those Jews, those Italians, those name the group, just say, whoa, 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 whoa. No, that's not the way we should be thinking.
Right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I actually had a question. Do you think that the German nation, after the Holocaust and after the Nazi regime ended, do you think they handled their past in the right way, like through their education?
Wow.
That's a great
Oh, goodness. What did you you went to the book of good questions?
So the reality of that question, Bree, is the following.
Yeah.
Most of the Germans were so atrocious, and I say the Germans collectively, because if you read any research about the participants,
Who's speaking?
many Germans.
Burson, David Burson.
Dave Burson.
So, but because of the threat of the Soviet Union after the end of World War II, the United States made it its business to accept and welcome former Nazis. The most infamous, of course, was the man who ran the concentration camp at Peenemünde, Werner von Braun, who helped us get to the moon. So we cut the Nazis a lot of slack because of our geopolitical fight with the Russians. As a result, people like Willy Brandt, who became the first I guess, mayor of West Berlin. Many of the people that were in political power after World War II were former Nazis. Now, you could say, well, they were Nazis because it was expedient to be a Nazi, in the same way that a lot of people, vote a certain way because it's expedient, it meets their interest. But the fact of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, the Germans never were called into question collectively as a people, as a culture, as a very civilized culture, for their participation, not just in the destruction of the Jews, but of course we don't want to forget the Romneys, we don't want to forget the homosexuals, we don't want to forget the people who were disabled, we don't want to forget the turmoil that they created in Poland, in Russia, in everywhere in the world that they went during World War II. They created havoc. And as far as I'm concerned, they got away with it. That's why.
Chuck?
Rabbi, I want to respond to Bray personally, because I taught in Berlin for several months at one point, and the people who are my age and younger were kind of appalled by what had happened before. They weren't in denial; they were embarrassed, and there are stories, there are films of people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who learned that their parents and grandparents were high up in the Nazi party only when they were adults and parents or grandparents. And it caused them tremendous trauma because they couldn't possibly imagine this. And these are the people they loved who mentored them. And they just didn't know how to handle it. So I think when we think about Germany, I think nothing is black and white. Everything is kind of gray. And there's a lot of different kinds of things. There's some amazing films about this kind of stuff that's available on Netflix and all around, which kind of highlight what people growing up in Germany have been dealing with. Right now, Germany is paying for Russians to come in and supporting the Jewish community financially and paying reparations as kind of a guilt thing. But there's always somebody who said, well, my grandfather was a Nazi. I just learned it, because I found a book in his name. So it's not black and white. It's always in transition, like everything else.
Well said. Well said.
That's why you read me letters.
I think they do have collective guilt, and they're probably the only country that was so bad that does have a bit of collective guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea Merkel certainly was embarrassed, and there's someone you can learn from.
I can tell you that growing up in Israel, Germany was very present. It sponsored a lot of programs in Israel. The German government really took it as a project, Israel as a project, to help. And then there were cities, the twin cities that we traveled between Israel and Germany. We hosted German delegations many times. So you felt that they want to really compensate.
They were out front, yes.
And I want to tell you one really anecdote that I think what Chuck said about their guilt and shame. I traveled with a group of German artists, not Jewish, to Jerusalem. And when we got to the Western Wall, everybody puts a note in the wall. And when they came back, the woman, I didn't go in with the women, it's separated. It's separated. So when the women came back and they said, "Oh, we put notes in the wall," and somehow I realized that the German woman wrote in English. So I asked her, why did you write in English? And it's like I woke her up. She didn't even think. She said, "I thought God wouldn't appreciate German."
Wow.
So that's that's one of the stories at least. So you've been a pleasure, and I really hope that we can continue our relationship. We have started something that we can all share.
I would like to point out to the kids that Anti-Semitism is alive and well. Just for your information, do you know when we have holidays, special high holidays, we call them, we hire a security guard to protect us. We also have a police car stationed in front of the synagogue during the service. So, you know, there's a very, I get, as the president, I get notices from various places, from the police departments, from ADL and various Jewish agencies when they detect a higher alert level. And there was a warning in February like that. And all the synagogues hired guards and armed guards because there was a very high alert throughout the country, and particularly in the Northeast. So it's just to point out, you know, and that's right here in Greenport. That's not like far away. That's not like in some other state or some other country. That's right here where we live.
Judy, was that the Day of Hate? That was the
Day, yeah, in February.
The Day of Hate.
There was a National Day of Hate. Thanks, Adrian. And that's what it was called.
Imagine people invest their time to create a day of hate.
Wasn't the Ku Klux Klan here in the late 20s?
It was here and well for a very long time.
Yeah, right.
After the 20s.
Right. Right.
Walk down Main Street. It's where Abe Brown used to have his haberdashery store. Right now, where that place called Mud, they sell mud clothes or mud something. Right next door to where the ice cream place is.
Right.
A door that says the Mechanics Institute or something. The Klan would meet upstairs above Abe and Ethel Brown's store. Of course, Ethel Brown was the doyenne of the Jewish community here. She lived until, I guess she was into her 105. And her husband, Abe Brown, was one of the clothiers here. And he was, and above their store, the Klan met. Now that's
amazing. It's amazing.
Well,
when we were looking for a house,
this is messianic time.
Oh my God.
I just want to say, when we were looking out here for a house, I was told not to look in Mattatuck because they didn't appreciate Jews. You believe it? Can you believe it?
I believe it very much because the country club didn't accept Jews, and
it's unbelievable
until very, very, very recently. But prejudice against Black people was very prevalent in this community when I was growing up. If you went to the movies, white people sat downstairs. Black people were not allowed to sit downstairs when I was growing up here, the movie theater.
Wow.
And this is a community in which these things have not gone away. They haven't gone away.
Thriving, doing very well. All right. Well,
Miriam, and then we'll wrap it up.
During the January 6th, there was someone wearing a shirt that had the number 6, the letters MNE, which stood for 6 million not enough.
6 million.
6 billion.
Well, I want to conclude by what one of you said about the hope that somehow this is what we believe. We believe in at the end of the tunnel there's light, and I want to say that the main question that people, theological questions, and since you are at a synagogue, is asked, of course, where was God during the Holocaust? And of course, I wouldn't even dare to attempt to try to answer something like this. So I will use the Lubavitch Rabbi Schneerson, and I will be safe. And I think this is the best answer, and I hope you'll take that. When people ask them, so Rabbi, tell us, where was God during the Holocaust? And Rabbi Schneerson said, it's a good question, but before we ask that, we should ask where man was. So it really is, a lot of it is up to us, and you as the future, hopefully, will continue to say never again. Amen, and thank you so much, really,
Thank
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for going, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be here.
Like a pleasure to.
A great teacher, great principal.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
Welcome to stay for the rest of the service.
Thank you. Rabbi, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure to meet you and your community here. I also would like to thank Chuck Simon, who introduced this idea and kind of bridged this together. Wanted to make sure of that. He's been a wonderful mentor and friend of the school, and absolutely completely grateful. I'm glad that my students were able to be here on a Friday. One of these young guys is in his baseball uniform, but I'm glad you got to hear a little bit of about their experience. And this may have been a much better learning experience than even the museum. Just hearing from all of you and sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. As educators, this is the real stuff. So God bless you all. Thank you so much.